It's time to finish what they started.
How you get so big to do food of this kind?
Hello and welcome in. We're here to do the thing and talk about the things that I have. I'm so excited. So this is what I have been waiting for on Disney Plus. Back when Disney Plus was just getting announced, we didn't know what was going on, and we knew Clone Wars was coming. This is what I was most excited about. I couldn't have known that Mandalorian was going to be a show that would speak to me in the way that it did, and this is what I wanted Disney Plus for. This is what I couldn't wait for. Clone Wars. And I'm here to review the first episode of the final season of the Clone Wars. Not that I haven't heard final season a couple of times now, but you know, everything in Star Wars is never final. It's kind of what I've learned. I don't want to dawdle too much with you guys because I know you want me to get right into the episode. We do have a full stream of just talking about getting ready for the season that we did, and you can go ahead and click and go to there, and you can listen to me and my co-host Django talk about that, and it'll get into a lot of this. But before I just dive into the episode with this first thing, I just want to say a little bit about me as a fan and about this show. Is this Clone Wars means so much to me. When Revenge of the Sith ended, it was a very different situation than where we are now with the Rise of Skywalker ending the Skywalker saga for a second time. With the end of Revenge of the Sith, there was no guarantee. In fact, it was very unlikely we were ever going to get a 7, 8, 9. It was very unlikely we were ever going to see Star Wars again. And the future was very confusing, and there wasn't a lot on the horizon. Where at least now, with Rise of Skywalker being over, we still have Disney Plus shows to look forward to. And we know when they come out, they have tangible release dates. Where after Revenge of the Sith, it was just, maybe there will be a live-action show someday. And that live-action show never actually came around. We got a different one. And it was just a very uncertain future. And so, 3 years later, 2008 rolls around, and we get the Clone Wars movie. And this, it was something I latched onto because we had, we had books, we had comics, there was stuff, like, it wasn't that there wasn't anything, but it was different. It was very different. And I had kind of gone from this intense sense of, now what do I do, to now suddenly I have this show, The Clone Wars. I went to the midnight movie or the midnight premiere for the movie, because they were still doing midnight premieres then and not like 6 p.m. premieres. And I was one of 8 people in the movie theater, but I'll never forget, like, seeing all that we got to see. The Obi-Wan Ventress flirting, Zero the Hutt meeting Ahsoka, all of these big moments. While I didn't like every aspect of the show right from the beginning, and I certainly haven't loved every episode of the show, this show means so much to me because for a long time it was Star Wars. It was the only Star Wars I had. Again, there were novels, but and you know I love the novels, they're all behind me right now, but Star Wars is a visual story. It started on the screen. It wasn't adapted from books. They didn't come first. It's not Lord of the Rings. It's not Harry Potter. It was something that started on a screen, and to not have anything more of Star Wars on a screen was going to be weird. And so I latched on to the Clone Wars, and it became Star Wars for me for a very long time. And then it got canceled, and really Clone Wars cancellation was the biggest hurdle I had in adjusting to the Disney era of canon, because I was just so heartbroken that this show got ended. And now flash forward to where we are now, and I've loved all 5 of the Disney era movies. I love the series that we've gotten, and I love where the books and comics are going, and I really don't mean to throw shade at them, but it is different because Star Wars started on a screen. And here we are getting Clone Wars back. And I just can't begin to say how much this moment in time means to me to see this. But with that, we can talk about the actual episode. Funnily enough, I've seen these episodes. The Bad Batch arc, all 4 of them, have been up online. I've seen the animatic form of these, so the things that happened in this episode were not particularly surprising to me, but it was wonderful to get to see it realized. Now, I will be talking spoilers for this episode. I will not be talking spoilers for this arc, even though I've seen the arc. Partly because I saw the arc a year ago, and I don't remember it very well. But that's okay. But I remember the big points, but I won't be talking about that, so you don't have to worry about it. I won't get into any other kind of outside extracurricular details, but I will be talking spoilers for this episode. And I guess with that, we can start talking about it and breaking it down. It was stellar to get to see it. Like, I already knew I liked the episode. I had seen it. I was excited to see it realized, but I love Clone Wars. I love the way Clone Wars looks. I love the way Clone Wars is paced. I don't know if it's that the first animated series just kind of nailed it for me so well, or if it because it was the first one, it's just that benchmark for me that all other things are compared to. It felt so good. It felt so comfortable, even though the animation had been updated, Anakin's character model had been updated. It felt like it just fell into place. And I've been seeing online, people are saying like this episode feels like the show picked up where it left off, which makes total sense. Like, this is not the case of, oh, we brought back Will and Grace, you know, now we're going to tell more episodes. Like, these were episodes that were written and already plotted out to air before the show got canceled. So of course it's going to feel like it's picking up right where it left off, because it was never supposed to leave off. That's why something like bringing Clone Wars back feels so natural to me versus, you know, the time we live in now where every series is getting like a second round again. This feels more genuine and honest than, you know, we're bored, we haven't actually made anything interesting in 10 years, let's get back together and make the thing again. Anyway, I'm still talking more about the series than the episode, but I'm just so excited to be here. As I was saying, we saw Anakin's character model. I love seeing Anakin and Mace together. It's been wild. I've been doing a rewatch of the whole series, coming off of the Ahsoka arc, where Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order, to see Anakin and Mace together. It's just so interesting to see their interactions, because what happened with Ahsoka really is a wedge that would be driven between the two characters. I don't actually think the characters should disagree too much. Like, they disagree because Anakin doesn't like authority and Mace is authority. But other than that, they're very similar characters. Even going through, like I said in my rewatch, you have the Onderon arc with Saw Gerrera. Sending any kind of help there and helping the partisans on that planet was something that only Mace and Anakin really wanted to do, and like we saw that they were cohesive. And so kind of seeing them, even though we're not seeing them in the field together, seeing them work together, I just really think that they're two interesting characters that I would love to have seen work together more. And anyway, now I'm just getting into stuff that would be more relevant in talking about the Ahsoka arc anyway. But I like seeing them together, and I like seeing them kind of navigating through things. And it's got to be an awkward time because this would presumably fall after Ahsoka has left the Order, and seeing how that plays out. But basically where this episode starts is they're fighting in this place, and it's not going super well. They're losing a bunch. They'll basically do one really good battle and then get their butts completely kicked, and they want to know what's going on. Rex and Cody are like, something's up. We have this plan. Let's take this small force in and sneak in and figure out how they're figuring out what we're doing, rather than continuing to fight on the battlefield. And Mace and Anakin are like, cool, go for it. Rex is holding something back, and Anakin can tell. I like this exchange because Anakin can sense that Rex is holding something back, doesn't push him. They have this relationship, they have this respect between each other. Anakin and Rex are like one. I mean, they're inseparable buddies, and seeing what's going to happen with Rex in these episodes we're going to get later is exciting to me. Like, it's interesting to see Rex hold something back from Anakin. Now, I don't think it's lying, and I don't think it's lying by omission. What we find out later when he talks to Cody is that he's thinking something that's so absurd he doesn't want to burden Anakin with it. So I don't think he's reached the point where he's lying to Anakin, but the idea that he would hold something back at all shows not really a separation between Anakin and Rex per se, but just a more of Rex's independent streak, and just in general how the clones are kind of breaking out of that conditioning they had and becoming more individualistic, which is something we're seeing here in these later stages of the Clone Wars. As I said, Rex talks to Cody about his thoughts that Echo could still be alive. Now, at the beginning of the episode, it's presented as a very nostalgic moment, so maybe it's just Rex being hopeful, but if you've seen Clone Wars before, you know that these things don't get mentioned without purpose, so inevitably there is a payoff for it at the end. I also like to point out the thing Cody was talking about, survivor's guilt, the idea that it's hard for the clones who made it to deal with, why am I the one that made it when all of these other good people died? It's also kind of interesting, it's the reverse. This is getting a little bit off topic, but one of my favorite characters from Legends, like many other people who are fans of Legends, is Mara Jade. But what made me like Mara Jade is because she also suffers from survivor's guilt, but it's the reverse, right? Mara was this bad person who had this redemption arc, and she doesn't understand why she was the one who got a redemption arc, where the rest of the Empire was also evil, but they didn't get their chance. This is kind of the reverse. Like, Rex is a good dude, but he's like, why am I the good dude? that gets to keep living versus these other good dudes. I find survivor's guilt to be a very interesting topic in Star Wars that doesn't come up as often as you would think it would. So seeing it brought up, even if it isn't actually the thing that is bothering Rex and isn't actually a theme throughout the whole episode, was just something I enjoyed seeing. Now we get to meet the Bad Batch themselves, Clone Force 99. Now, Rex makes a comment, 99, that's a nice touch. Their name is for Clone Trooper 99 that we saw in the ARC Troopers arc back in Season 3. He's the guy, he had some deformities, and he ended up just being a custodian on Kamino, helping all of his brothers kind of train and learn. And so this is a clone trooper group, a squad comprised of people with desirable mutations, and so they named themselves after 99, which is a very nice touch indeed. It also has a connection to the Marvel Star Wars comic line, the first run, even though there's a new run now that's starting to take place during and after Empire Strikes Back. There's a group called Task Force 99 that was very similar. It had very similar specifications. They were named in honor of Clone Force 99, but I don't know if that's like an out-of-universe reference. They just wanted to acknowledge the Bad Batch arc that it didn't get released, or if it's like in universe there's a connection there. So we meet these guys with desirable mutations. They have 4 different troopers with 4 very specific personalities. We have Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Crosshair, I believe are their names. And so they are what they are. There's a guy who's Hunter is a tracker, and Wrecker can wreck things, and Crosshair shoots stuff, and Tech is good at tech. And they have those like hyper specialized ways of being. And meeting them is a very interesting thing, even going right to the fortune cookie for the episode, talking about embracing differences and how it makes you stronger. A theme throughout the Clone Wars, through the first 6 seasons of the Clone Wars, is really how individual the clones become. That you have all of these people who are built from the same template, who all should have been the same thing, and certainly the Kaminoans intended them to be faceless, basically, that they would just be clones of each other, and that the Jedi were the ones that kind of inspired this individuality within them, which is certainly ironic considering that so many people who are who critique the Jedi for lacking individuality, and yet the Jedi were inspiring individuality within the clones. So I think that speaks to, or rather against, some of the critiques on the Jedi, but that's a whole other thing. But we've been seeing the clones kind of find their own personalities and how they became names and not numbers, and it was just kind of subtle variations on the same person. But now here we have 4 clone troopers that are really, really different, and really, really different from each other, to the point that they're just like, there's the shooting guy and the tech guy, and they're hyper specialized, and it felt jarring, even being used to how the clones have become individual, to see 4 that are just that different. And they did look a little bit different, but even more so than just looking different, having a slightly altered face, just how different they feel. They don't have the same kind of discipline. Even somebody like Rex, who's a little bit more of a maverick than, say, somebody like Cody. These guys feel really different. They don't refer to each other by a rank at all. Cody and Rex are referred to as commander and captain. These guys don't really get a rank. They're just this special operations unit. And they talk about how they don't really work with regs much. They don't really know how to work with regs, and that becomes a tension within the episode. As we go through the arc, that's something I'll comment on more. I don't really want to until we kind of get to the end and see how things come together. But that is this kind of groundwork in this first episode of showing you, okay, we've kind of been teaching you and setting you up to understand that clones are different, but now here's some clones that are really, really different, and we're going to explore that. And we're used to, even with that individuality, a uniformity within the clones, that they're all brothers, that they all stick together, that they're all, you don't betray your brothers. And then to see 4 that are so different that they kind of see themselves separately from other clones was something interesting, and that's something that created a tension. To the point where they don't really respect Rex, but they respect Cody. Whether that's because Cody has a relationship with them or because of the commander rank, I'm not really familiar enough to know, or to know if it's been said, but it was just something interesting to see. Also, on that note, watching the episode, I'm trying to figure out, are they actual mutations that happened accidentally or not? Because there's a point where Kix and I believe it's Jesse are talking about, oh, I can recognize what everybody else's thing is, but what's Hunter's deal? And it's said that he was engineered to be able to read electromagnetic stuff. So, are these guys that had a mutation and then were engineered beyond that? Were these intentional engineerings? Because certainly the Kaminoans, in Legends and canon both, were very, very prejudiced against any clones that didn't turn out right. And in fact, for every, Clone Force 99, there's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of clones that were just not allowed to grow because they had malformations. So to see this kind of be celebrated is strange, and I wonder, it's what makes me think that this must be intentional, especially with that word engineering, because I'm not sure that the Kaminoans would have celebrated accidental mutations, but maybe they capitalized on accidental mutations, or maybe somebody like Clone Force 99 is something that kind of comes into play at the Jedi's doing as they get more involved. I don't know. I would like at some point to get more on the story of like where they came from. But for now, I'm content to just kind of wonder and see what can happen. As the episode goes, they're flying to go to the place to do the thing, and their ship gets shot down. And here we get to really see them in action. One, Cody is hurt, and we see Wrecker with his super strength, instead of getting Cody out of the vehicle, get the vehicle off of Cody, which was pretty wild. This also sets up more of the tension that I was talking about between the clone troopers in this episode, because Cody was kind of the one that everybody respected. Getting Cody out of the story means that they have to kind of form this mutual respect for each other. We see Clone Force 99 in action. Wrecker's the guy who like runs with the plow made out of the ship, and then we see Data is doing the readings, and Hunter's throwing the thing, and Crosshair's shooting it, and like we really get to see them work as this unit. And we've seen clones work as a unit before, but it's really, the only time we really got it, as far as I can remember it, is looking at Domino Squad, and then looking at the survivors of Domino Squad kind of work together. Most of the time, we see big platoons and captains and commanders, where here we get to see this squad really go off of each other's skills. And even though we see them banter and argue and bicker, that they also really depend on each other in battle. And again, that's something I'm going to talk about more as we get to the other episodes rather than dwelling on it too long this time, but that's that foundation that's being levied in this episode for where the arc is going. The villain that exists in this episode is Admiral Trench. It's cool to see Trench. Chronologically speaking, he's like the first villain we see in the show. I think if it's not the first episode chronologically, it's pretty darn close. I don't remember the name of it now, but it's the episode where Anakin and Yularen are in the ship that's just small enough but still has a cloaking device, and they're trying to get to Christophsis. It's set directly before Hidden Enemy, which is set before the movie. But again, I'm drawing a blank on what that episode name is. But that's where we first see Trench, and Trench pops up again in the Order 66 arc. It's kind of cool to have him now as this recurring villain throughout the series, and he's the one who's kind of smart enough to figure out what the clones are up to, so it's cool just to see him be involved. As I said, the clones are kind of butting heads throughout the episode, especially once they lose Cody, but Rex does impress them when they're trying to sneak into the outpost, or trying to take over the outpost. The Hunter is like, so what do you want us to do, like pick them off from the trees, and Rex is like, nah, let's just go in guns blazing. And that really speaks to them, and that's really the Rex I know and love. Rex is my favorite clone. I love him so much, so it's cool to see him get to kind of be out there in the fight and do that. And so that was kind of the moment where they're like, okay, this Rex guy's not so bad for a reg, and they can get in there and do their plan. They take over the outpost, they move on to the like comm station place, and there's just a lot of fighting, a lot of cool action. This is where we get to the kind of climax of the whole episode. As another kind of Easter eggy thing, Clone Wars has this habit of like, I think it's every episode of the Clone Wars will have at least one line of dialogue from like a Star Wars film. Like I joked before that you could do like a drinking game with like take a drink every time it's a line of dialogue from a film. And so this is no exception. You have the droids, and one of them goes, "What do you think's going on?" He's like, "I don't know. Maybe it's another drill." And that's a line from A New Hope when Obi-Wan's like sneaking around trying to take down the tractor beam. So it's those little things in there that are always fun to spot. But they do head into the base. They don't take over the comm center, but they find out that there's communication on another planet with what seems to be Echo. And if you remember Echo is one of the ARC troopers. He got made an ARC trooper with Fives in season 3, and then later died in the Citadel arc. And I remember Echo dying was one of, if not the hardest death for me in the series, because I loved Domino Squad, and Fives being the last of Domino Squad for so long, and then what happens with Fives in season 6, it was rough. And so Echo coming back was a big thing, and we're gonna go see what's up with our boy Echo, and why is he seemingly helping the Separatists, and what's going on with that. So I'm really excited to see where the episodes go. But that's what I have to say about this episode, other than the obvious. I mean, like, the music was stunning, the animation was spectacular. I mean, the animation in Clone Wars was great anyway, especially by the time you got to the 6th season, but it's just phenomenal now, which makes sense. It's years later, they have more money, they can funnel a budget onto 12 episodes instead of a full season. Like, it's beautiful. The show is beautiful, the sound is amazing, the music is amazing. It's just so nice to be back in Clone Wars land, and I could talk about that all day, but that's what I'm gonna say for now, and we'll have more analysis as the arc unfolds. But I really want to know what you guys have to say. Please leave a comment below. If you're going to talk about a spoiler from later on the arc, please just be kind to your fellow commenters and, like, put spoiler in your comment, but obviously discussion is going to be what it's going to be. If you're not already, please follow us on all the socials, and I'll see you guys in a week with another Clone Wars review. Until then, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun.